Beyond 100%, how to increase the output of your manufacturing process by 20% or more without spending capital, even when you're being told the process is maxed out. Let me tell you about a thriving manufacturing business that did everything right and then had a big setback. The company had developed an entirely new category of beverages that was proving extremely popular with consumers. And in spite of 24/7 operation in their manufacturing facilities, they were unable to keep up with demand. This is when some of their competitors, who were larger companies with deeper pockets, stepped in with imitation versions of their product to soak up the demand that they were unable to satisfy. Of course, they went about trying to get more production. They had plans to build new facilities, but that takes time, and it was going to be at least 18 months before that new capacity came online, and they predicted that by that point, one of these competitors had an excellent chance of overtaking them to become the market leader in this new market that they created. They were desperately trying to get more production from their existing manufacturing plants, but all the head of operations was hearing was that the facilities were maxed out and that there was nothing more that could be done to increase output. However, in spite of these challenges and this perception about being maxed out, this business actually went on to increase output from these existing plants by over 25%. This enabled them to stay ahead of the competitors until the new manufacturing plants could be built, and to this day they remain the market leader in this category. So how did they do it? The head of operations knew the first thing he needed to do to increase production was to address the perception that the existing manufacturing plants were maxed out. He knew that so long as that perception prevailed, any tactical efforts to try to increase production would almost certainly fail because too many people believed that there was simply no opportunity. And the first step in challenging that perception was to understand how it could have developed in the first place, which is something like this. When new manufacturing assets are first commissioned, of course, we see abundant potential to improve their performance. We train operators in how to run this new equipment. We write work instructions that explain what they need to do. We centerline the equipment so that changeovers can be quick and efficient. We performance test the new equipment, and we engage the equipment vendors to help us problem solve. And as a result, output begins to climb. But as with anything, of course, there are some setbacks. And once we capture the low-hanging fruit, the gains become more hard-won over time until eventually production plateaus. And the longer we operate at that plateau of production, the less likely we are to believe that a step change beyond this level could be possible. And we might not realize it, but we've actually been mentally trimming away the remaining potential in the process until our perception of 100% of potential is so close to current performance as to be almost the same. Now, this potential trimming can happen a few different ways. It can be premeditated. So, for example, targeting 85% of OEE as the world-class benchmark to strive for. It can also happen in an ad hoc fashion over time. For example, blaming performance issues on raw materials that are inconsistent, or SKUs that are more difficult to run, or staff turning over too quickly, or equipment being too old, or management not listening to the workforce's ideas, etc. It can also happen in a proactive fashion where we acknowledge that the opportunity to increase output exists, but we do it in such a way that it prevents us from pursuing that opportunity in the near term. This includes things like capital projects that will solve all our problems but are far off into the future and may never be funded. It also includes having a pipeline of improvements that keep getting delayed because we're just too busy to ever get to them. Now, the head of operations in this company didn't know for sure that this is what was happening in his business, but he suspected that it could be the case and went about trying to do something about it. The head of operations and his team used a 5-step approach to go beyond 100% of perceived capacity. It's an approach that can help any manufacturer who fears that operational limitations may be constraining growth. The first step is to show that 100% is an illusion. This means gathering a few pieces of evidence that show that the maxed out narrative is not all it's cracked up to be. The second step is to steepen your Pareto. When a process is perceived to be maxed out, only small incremental opportunities are visible. You can't drive a breakthrough with small opportunities. You need to rediscover the big opportunities to improve. Step 3 is to mobilize for a breakthrough. This means making a meaningful portion of your best people's time available for a given window, typically on the order of weeks, to slay the dragons that have been constraining production. Step 4 is to execute the improvements you've identified and go all the way. Many well set up improvement projects fail to deliver results or fail to sustain them because they quit too soon. There are 4 sequential phases that every sustained improvement must pass through. And step 5, once you've solved the big problems constraining output, you're producing more, and the additional profits are flowing to the bottom line, it's time to celebrate the impact your team has had on the business and internalize the experience. If you're seeing any of the following symptoms in your business, then this approach can help you. Number 1, operations are stretched thin to the point that customers are noticing. Salespeople are not putting their foot on the gas for fear of underserving any new customers they could win. You're being told your manufacturing process is maxed out and there's nothing else that could be done to improve. Your people are so busy with the day-to-day that they never have time to step back and focus on improving manufacturing performance. And finally, your shop floor workforce is stressed out and at risk of disengaging from the business culturally. If you'd like to learn more about the 5 steps of going beyond 100% of perceived capacity in your business, please reach out.